got my hands on some bondage and discipline with children involved. And some of the reading that I had done and the pictures that I had seen showed total submission.
Both an online and offline relationship with a student who I had taught prior to having any interaction with him outside of the classroom. There was no other interaction. However, I became close to his family. As far as his parents, they had actually invited me to their house several times. We'd go to ball games.
It's an unsettling world for predators when they are exposed in their most vulnerable moments through chilling confessions and disturbing glimpses into their twisted minds. These conversations, a haunting mix of manipulation and candor, show the depths of their depravity and highlight the urgent need for justice. Here are 10 disturbing interviews with child predators that reveal the true faces of those who prey on innocence. Clarence Bain.
About 2 years of molesting my son, and all of it that I had been buying, renting, swapping. I had gotten my hands on some bondage and discipline with children involved. And some of the reading that I had done and the pictures that I had seen showed total submission, forcing the children to do what I wanted. And I had eventually started using some of this bondage and discipline with my own son.
Clarence Bain, a 40-year-old man, and his stepson for about 2 years. And in August 1998, he was caught and pleaded guilty, assaulting the boy and taking pictures of him in bondage gear. The incident happened at Bain's home in Van Nuys, California, and he often forced his stepson to do explicit acts. Sadly, this happened sometimes weekly for 4 years.
It escalated to the point where I was putting a large Ziploc bag over his head and taping it around his neck with black duct tape or black electrical tape, and raping and molesting him at that point, to the point that he would turn blue, pass out. At that point, I would rip the bag off his head, not for fear of hurting him, but because of the excitement. I was extremely aroused by inflicting pain.
Bain was a scary figure for his stepson. He threatened to hurt the boy's mother if she reported or if the boy didn't obey him. Even worse, he made the boy molest a girl when they were alone together. In June 1998, sheriff's deputies were checking license plates in Duarto and noticed Bain's car outside his estranged wife's house. They went to Bain's house with a warrant for a traffic violation and found many pictures of a boy in a bondage pose while searching his car. One deputy realized the boy playing in the yard was the same one in the photos. Bain was taken in for questioning, and after getting a search warrant, the police found toys, magazines, pictures, and videos of his stepson at his house. A deputy said the things they found were very disturbing. The boy said he endured to protect his mother and sister. He had tried to report Bain, but nobody believed him. Later, it was discovered that Bain had been convicted in 1992 for sending and receiving explicit images of children and had served 18 months in prison. Bain admitted that watching when he was younger had influenced his actions toward his stepson. He also said that his desire towards the boy sometimes made him think about killing him. On August 6, 1998, Bain pleaded guilty to aggravated abuse of a child and was given the maximum sentence of 15 years to life. He finished his sentence in the early 2000s, and some sources say he has since died of natural causes. Thankfully, his stepson survived the ordeal, John Doe.
As far as his parents, they had actually invited me to their house several times. We'd go to ball games, or we'd go to the circus or various things like that. And it was when that private time, that alone time, was so prevalent that the opportunity presented itself.
This man had experienced childhood first by a friend's grandfather and later by adults at a bar. The early trauma had later developed into a habit that began with typical adult content but escalated to children content as his tolerance increased. He attributes his attraction to children to his past abuse, viewing children as peers and engaging with their interests. He built trust with children online, seeing himself as their friend, and would start by requesting ordinary photos before escalating to explicit images, noting that the children readily complied. While aware of the consequences offline, the online environment fueled a compulsion stronger than his fear of getting caught. Because his primary focus was satisfying his urge, it was bigger than his concerns about potential legal repercussions.
That was wrong. I was feeling like it was mutual. I was feeling as it, I didn't feel.
Also, despite being married to a supportive wife, he also engaged in a relationship with a 14-year-old student he had taught. But this relationship extended beyond the classroom, with the student's parents even inviting him to their home for social events. He claimed that encounters arose during these visits, and that he didn't perceive his actions as wrong at the time, and believed them to be mutual. As a result, he struggled with a dual identity, portraying himself to people as a responsible adult in his professional life, working at a dance studio, teaching and contributing to children's charity, while indulging in a childlike mindset online. He found it challenging to separate these two personas. Even his work in a shelter for abused women and children during high school couldn't prevent his harmful behaviors. Mike.
So your interest in young boys,
Yes.
lasted for how long?
Lasted for since I was like 18 up to 8 years ago, until I realized, that there was an age they couldn't get consent.
Now well past 40, Mike, the son of a war veteran in New York, grew up with his mother and 7 siblings, but he always felt that she wasn't a good mother and that he had to care for his siblings at a young age. When one brother died of leukemia at 12, he started smoking and drinking heavily. He often said his father was an alcoholic and that he rarely communicated with his mother because she brought men into the home and referred to them as uncles or friends of the family. Mike recalled being in relationships with these men beginning at age 7, which continued for several years. He also believed his mother was paid for allowing the situation, which he endured as a means of providing for his family. He said that this experience was a contributing factor to his realization that he was gay, developed an interest in younger boys in school, and eventually stopped attending around 4th or 5th grade. Then, Child Protective Services repeatedly tried to intervene, but they couldn't change the situation. At around 17 or 18, while living on the streets of Rochester, New York, Mike met a man who took him to a house and farm in a small town. The two became partners until the man's death a few years later. Afterward, at 18 or 19, Mike found work at a mug company where he met a young man who became his long-term partner. During their relationship, they often attended concerts and music events together, but things didn't quite go as planned. At 19, Mike married Jody, whom he met at a trailer park. Their marriage ended within a month when Jody discovered his relationship with a male partner. He later married Mary Ann, a mother of 4, and moved with her family to Florida. There, Mike began an affair with a wealthy man, Frankie, who paid his rent and expenses. Mary Ann believed Mike was working since he provided for the family. Meanwhile, Mike's substance abuse worsened, and he began abusing Mary Ann's 2 oldest sons. He also frequented gay bars in Clearwater, Florida, where he and his partner hired hustlers. Some of these hustlers eventually robbed them, leading to a sting operation. The arrests included prominent figures nicknamed the Clearwater 27 or 28. While others received probation, Mike, lacking their financial means, was sentenced to 10 years in prison. Although the charges tied to the Clearwater arrests were dropped, authorities pursued charges for the abuse of his stepsons. His stepsons, then aged 13 and 14, testified against him, and Mike eventually confessed. He served 4 years in prison before 2 state-appointed doctors declared him fit for release. After his release, Mike stated that he still identifies as gay, but now prefers partners closer to his age. Jennifer Caswell.
Why did you resign?
Well, because the school became suspicious, and when they called me out on it, I kind of freaked out, and I just signed the paper to resign, and I walked out.
Okay, but what was happening that was making them suspicious?
He was seen in my classroom after school.
He started hanging around your classroom
Yes.
because people reported it. They said,
Yes.
we see him coming and going from the classroom
Yeah.
after everybody else is gone.
Jennifer Caswell, a 28-year-old former English teacher, was arrested in June 2014 after being found in a Mississippi hotel room with a male student. Caswell had resigned from her teaching position at Hollis Middle School in Oklahoma 2 months earlier, amid rumors about inappropriate conduct with a student. For someone who had been married for over 10 years and had a 6-year-old son, she claimed during an interview that she had been struggling with feelings of loneliness in her marriage. She stated that she had not received much attention and felt disconnected from her husband, which led her to seek validation from a student who showed her attention. Initially, there was no hard evidence to suggest that any illegal activity had taken place. However, the situation took a serious turn when it was revealed that Caswell and the student, referred to as MC, had been spending time together outside of school hours. Surveillance footage also showed them entering a classroom alone and emerging laughing. The student, despite initially denying any wrongdoing, later fled Oklahoma and traveled to Mississippi to meet Caswell at a hotel. Authorities tracked their movements, and after they were caught, Caswell was arrested. She pled guilty to multiple charges, including second-degree rape and enticing a child, and was sentenced to 10 years in prison. In addition to her sentence, she was ordered to pay $1 million in restitution to the victim and his family, Mary Kay Letourneau.
I'm not trying to cause an argument here. When you were 34, you did think that way and you did do exactly that.
I was pursued and I didn't think about it. I did not think about it. Didn't.
But that's not an excuse for any crime, is it? And I'm not saying
No,
this
it's
is.
not.
You can't just go,
Not.
I didn't think about it, see you later, sorry.
No. Morally, I thought about, you know what? I'm not even.
Mary Kay Letourneau was born Mary Catherine Schmitz in 1962. She grew up in a strict Catholic household with her politician father. Mary had a normal childhood and was provided with everything she wanted because her father was wealthy. While attending Arizona State University, Mary met and married fellow student Steve Letourneau. The couple had their first of 4 children while still in school. Mary admitted in later interviews that she didn't love Steve and only married him because her parents urged her to. The couple moved to Anchorage, Alaska, where Steve worked as a baggage handler. After about a year, Steve was transferred to Seattle, Washington, where Mary gave birth to their second child. She graduated college with a teaching degree and got a job teaching second grade at Shorewood Elementary School in Buren, a suburb of Seattle. During this time, Mary's marriage began to suffer. The couple had financial problems and both had extramarital affairs. On top of the infidelity, Mary was physically abused by Steve, sending her to the hospital on multiple occasions. She found solace in one of her students, Vili Falau. Vili was her student in both 2nd and 6th grade. In 1996, at 34, she pursued an inappropriate relationship with Vili, a minor. Police discovered them in a parked car, where she moved to the front seat, while Vili pretended to sleep in the back. They provided fake names, and Vili, claiming to be 18, denied any misconduct, avoiding immediate legal action. On March 4, 1997, authorities arrested her after her husband, Ro, TM's relative, reported the affair. She admitted guilt to 2 counts of second-degree child abuse. While awaiting sentencing, she gave birth to Vili's child. Initially sentenced to 6.5 years, her term was reduced to 6 months, with 3 months suspended, as she was a nursing mother. She also had to complete 3 years of treatment. 2 weeks after her release, Mary was caught with Vili again, violating a no-contact order. Her plea deal was revoked, and she was sent back to prison for 7.5 years. During her sentence, she gave birth to their second child and spent 18 months in solitary confinement. Vili dropped out of school, turned to alcohol, and struggled with depression. Mary was released in 2004. Vili, now 21, convinced the court to lift the no-contact order, and they married within 6 months. Over time, Vili grew resentful, feeling manipulated and robbed of his childhood. After 12 years of marriage, he filed for divorce. On July 6, 2020, Mary died from colorectal cancer at 58, with Vili and her family by her side. She left much of her estate to him, Frankie. Frankie's life had been deeply affected by a series of troubling incidents. Starting at a young age, he engaged in inappropriate behavior, soliciting boys at a school when he was only 12. He claims this made him the first person arrested for this type of offense in Cleveland, Ohio, leading to probation and time spent working on a farm. He connected his early actions to witnessing his mother's relationships and experiencing inappropriate contact with an uncle during his childhood. He believed these experiences were normal, which may have influenced his later behavior. Later, in his 30s, Frankie was involved with a 16-year-old, leading to house arrest and therapy. He was part of a larger group arrested in Florida for involvement with the same young person. Frankie admitted to many similar unreported incidents. He also encountered a 13-year-old, leading to a prison sentence. Frankie claimed he didn't know the boy's age and described the situation as a series of lies and manipulation. Despite these past actions, Frankie expresses regret and guilt for the harm he caused. He feels his past will always affect him and cautions others against making similar choices. He says he has apologized to at least one of the people involved, though he isn't allowed to contact them. Robert Black.
I'd be driving along, I'd see a young girl. I'd go out and talk to her and try to persuade her to get into the van. And take her somewhere quiet.
Robert Black, a man with a long history of criminal behavior, first came to attention in 1963 when he abducted a young Scottish girl, taking her to his home where he subjected her to abuse. Despite the severity of his actions, Black was only charged with lewd behavior and did not serve jail time. Instead, he was subjected to a brief course of therapy. However, this failure to appropriately address his behavior allowed him to continue his criminal actions, escalating over the years. After his initial encounter with the law, Black was reported by neighbors for inappropriate behavior with children and sent to a rehabilitation center. However, this intervention did not stop his criminal tendencies. He became increasingly obsessed with disturbing materials, which fueled his dangerous inclinations. Black was eventually linked to the disappearance and deaths of several young girls. Despite ongoing investigations, his criminal activities continued as he abducted and killed more victims, hiding their bodies in secluded areas. Also on April 23, 1988, a young girl, Teresa Thornhill, was enjoying a social gathering at a park with her friend Andrew Beeston and a group of other teenagers. After spending some time together, Teresa parted ways with her friends and began walking alone. As she walked, she noticed a blue transit van slowly pulling up ahead of her. The driver of the van stepped out, popped open the hood, and asked Teresa if she could help fix the engine. She politely declined and tried to walk away quickly. But the driver, Robert Black, had other intentions. Without warning, Black grabbed Teresa and tried to pull her into his vehicle. However, what Black did not expect was that Teresa was far from an easy target. Instead of freezing in fear, she fought back fiercely. She squeezed his testicles, causing him to loosen his grip, and then bit down hard on his forearm. This sudden and aggressive resistance caught Black off guard. In the chaos, a nearby bystander noticed the struggle and rushed to Teresa's aid, pushing Black away and helping her break free. Realizing his attempt had failed, Black immediately released his grip and hastily retreated to the driver's seat of the van. He quickly drove away, leaving the scene in failure. Teresa's quick thinking and bravery had foiled his plans. Black's final arrest came in 1990 after another failed abduction attempt. A vigilant neighbor observed Black trying to kidnap a young girl and reported the incident to authorities, leading to his arrest. When the police searched Black's van, they discovered the body of his last victim, who had already been assaulted. Black was charged with numerous crimes and sentenced to life in prison. His case was one of the most exhaustive investigations in UK history. Jack Reynolds.
How did you get them alone?
Grooming. I would check out their family situation. I would check out their clothing to see how well they were, financially. I would check out their social interaction with other kids. When we were on the ballparks or on the gym floor, I would make sure which ones I wanted to molest. I would give them special attention, congratulate them, talk to them when I know that I would never be allowed to talk to anybody else. Aside from everybody, I would give them the attention that an official is not supposed to give anybody. And in
1989, Jack Reynolds was arrested in Tipton, Indiana, thanks to the bravery of a young boy who stopped an attempted crime. Reynolds had approached the boy with bad intentions, but the quick-thinking child came up with a plan. He pretended to need the restroom, but instead called the police to report what was happening. This smart move led to Reynolds' arrest, and he went on to serve 12 years in prison for his actions. After his release, Reynolds sat down for an interview with investigator Kara Kenny near his home in Anderson, Indiana. During their conversation, he opened up about how people like him misuse trust and authority to harm others. Reynolds talked about his time as a youth umpire, referee, and mentor at a high school, roles that gave him access to kids. He admitted to targeting vulnerable children especially those who seemed lonely or lacked strong support systems. Reynolds explained how he used his position and familiarity in places like schools and recreational areas to get close to these children. He specifically looked for boys who appeared isolated or who didn't have a strong father figure in their lives. Deborah LaFauve.
This student, while his cousin drove the car, you know, even if he's not 14 and you're 23, even if he's not your student and you're a married woman, it's a pretty brazen thing to do. Were you scared?
It didn't even bother me. And like I said, I am the most modest person even today. Like, if I'm in my bathing suit, I want a cover-up.
It seems like there are a lot of contradictions here.
Oh,
because
there is.
On the one hand, you're saying you're a modest person, yet you've had a car with a 14-year-old while his cousin's driving. You don't let your midriff show, but there are these photos of you on a motor, you know, posing.
I think that's different, and I was 18.
Deborah LaFauve, a 23-year-old teacher, gained national attention after a shocking incident involving a student. LaFauve, once a model with an English degree, had been working as an English teacher at Greco Middle School in Florida. She seemed to have it all: an ideal job, a marriage to Owen LaFleur, and a promising career. But everything changed when she was accused of engaging in inappropriate behavior with a student in her class. The controversy began after a series of events led to her arrest. It was revealed that LaFauve had developed an inappropriate relationship with a student who had been flirtatious toward her. Their meetings, which reportedly took place in her car, home, and even at the school, soon came to light. For a middle school teacher having an affair with a 14-year-old boy at her school, she didn't try to keep her affair secret. She seemed to be flaunting it, and people were starting to suspect that something was wrong. She'd been married less than a year, but in June of 2004, Owen LaFauve, her husband, began to have a terrible suspicion about his lovely wife, Deborah. He said to her mom that he thought she was having an affair and that he thought it was with one of her fellow teachers, but he never dreamed it was with one of her students. And that's exactly what happened. Deborah LaFauve, a 23-year-old reading teacher, was having an affair with a 14-year-old student at her middle school in a suburb of Tampa. She'd already performed oral. Now, 10 days later, on June 14th, she invited him to help her clean her classroom and crossed yet another line. And that was the first time. A concerned family member of the student alerted authorities, prompting an investigation. During their investigation, police had asked the boy questions to prove that Deborah was his. He described her tattoos, her tan lines, and another even more intimate detail. Now the police needed photos to verify his descriptions. In June 2004, LaFauve was arrested and later pled guilty to charges of lewd or lascivious battery against a student. While the charges carried a sentence of 5 to 15 years in prison, LaFauve was given community control, house arrest, and 7 years under probation. The prosecution argued that her probation would be difficult to complete, which may have influenced the lenient sentence. In interviews following the incident, she explained that her actions were influenced by her past experiences, including being assaulted in middle school and struggling with bipolar disorder. Jared Harrell.
When you put her in the bin, do you remember now what she looked like when you put her in the bin?
She was pretty much naked.
It kind of sounds like that sometimes will make you make a decision that you regret, a bad decision. Do you think maybe sometimes they drive you don't even realize it?
I mean, I'd like to think that I didn't have that much control over me. As far as that situation is concerned with Summer, it was by chance. You know, I didn't provoke it. I didn't want it to happen. Like, I would give anything for it not to happen. I didn't want it to happen.
Jared Harrell, a 24-year-old, was arrested in February 2010 in Mississippi for possessing graphic child-related material on his hard drive. His college roommate discovered the material, unaware that it depicted Jared's victims. The arrest took place in a CVS parking lot after a search of Jared's laptop revealed a familiar face among the photos and videos, a child previously featured on Florida News. Detectives realized the connection and contacted the families of Jared's victims. One of those victims was Summer Thompson, who disappeared on October 19, 2009, while walking home from Grove Park Elementary School in Orange Park, Florida. A widespread search followed, involving family, neighbors, and community members. Hope remained among her classmates and family that she would return, but tragically the worst had already happened. Jared's arrest months later and miles away finally revealed the truth. In his confession, Jared recounted the events. He admitted to panicking and hiding Summers' body in a red Rubbermaid box, then disposing of it in a restaurant dumpster behind a Med and Beef restaurant in Fleming Island. He later discarded Summers' belongings, a black and pink backpack, books, and shoes, in a trash bag at his house. He explained that he chose the dumpster because it felt familiar, because the dumpster had already been emptied by detectives who had to search a Georgia landfill to recover Summers' remains.
Did you tried to make her be quiet because you didn't want anybody to hear her screaming? And how did you said you put your hand over her mouth?
Correct.
What happened from there?
She kind of went limp. Through all the panic and everything, I noticed that, she wasn't moving.
Right.
At that point I realized that she was probably dead. And I got one of the red Rubbermaid boxes. I put her in it.
The only thing that had come off of her at that point was
The house where the crime occurred belonged to Jared's parents, and they were in the process of moving with the day of the incident to be their last day at that location. Had Summer arrived the following day, she might have been spared. After disposing of the body and evidence, Jared acted normally when his mother arrived. Together, they ran errands, got gas, and ate at McDonald's before she left. Later that night, a search party, including Summer's family and police, knocked on Jared's door, inquiring about the missing girl. Jared attempted to explain Summer's presence in his home as accidental, claiming she wandered in. However, he couldn't justify bringing her inside. While he denied planning the encounter, the content of his laptop suggested otherwise, indicating a potential predatory inclination. Detectives questioned inconsistencies in Jared's account, prompting him to recall specific details to avoid accusations of lying. He detailed how he placed Summer's body in his 2001 Suzuki Grand Vitara, parking in the driveway and sliding the bin into the back seat. He also recounted the disposal at the dumpster, expressing uncertainty about the presence of a blanket in the bin. He insisted that his actions were unintentional, driven by panic. Jared received 6 consecutive life sentences for 3 separate crimes: first-degree murder, kidnapping, and battery. Brittany Zamora.
Yeah. So, all right. I'm going to have you go back in there, and I will see if I can get you, see if we have any type of blanket or something, okay?
Can I see my mom right now? How long do I wait in that room for?
Just until we finish up some things on our end.
Typically, how long is that?
Typically, how long are you in that room? It could be an hour, it could be like 4 hours.
Brittany Zamora, a bright and accomplished teacher, unfortunately made some serious mistakes despite her academic success. She graduated with honors and a perfect 4.0 GPA from Arizona State University and began her teaching career at Littleton Elementary School in Avondale, where she was recognized for her talent by being named Teacher of the Year in 2016. After this achievement, Brittany took a new teaching job at Las Brisas Academy. It was there that things took a turn. In 2017, while expecting to be away from school, she reportedly suggested that her students text her if they were bored. One student did, and this started an inappropriate chain of events. Even after she returned to the classroom, the texting continued and became flirtatious, with expressions of love. The relationship escalated beyond texting to in-person conversations and eventually a kiss.
Other students, noticing what they perceived as favoritism, reported the situation to the school principal. Though Brittany denied the allegations, she continued the inappropriate relationship with the student. This unfortunately led to serious consequences for her.
Yeah.
So, all right. I'm going to have you go back in there, and I will see if I can get you, see if we have any type of blanket or something, okay?
Can I see my mom right now? How long do I wait in that room for?
Just until we finish up some things on our end.
Typically, how long is that?
Typically, how long are you in that room? It could be an hour, it could be like 4 hours.
On February 16, 2018, she met the student outside his grandparents' house for an encounter in her car. Further encounters followed at the grandparents' house and in Zamora's classroom. Another student witnessed the inappropriate interactions and was even asked by Zamora to act as a lookout during one encounter in the classroom. The victim's stepmother had a parental monitoring app on her stepson's phone, which alerted her to the repeated use of the word baby. Upon investigating, she discovered messages from an Instagram profile belonging to Mrs. Zamora. Recognizing the profile from a previous communication, the stepmother informed the victim's father. The victim confessed everything to his parents, who immediately contacted the school principal, leading to Zamora's arrest. On March 22, 2018, Zamora was arrested and charged with 9 counts with a minor, 2 counts of child molestation, and 1 count of transmitting obscene material to a minor. All felonies. Initially, Zamora denied the allegations and avoided media attention, but eventually pleaded guilty to assaulting her student. She was sentenced to 20 years in prison. These interviews, although uncomfortable and difficult to digest, tell the lifelong consequences it leaves on both the victims and perpetrators, and why no one deserves to go through them.